anarchy in the streets right now.
Has been injured as rioting youth started throwing rocks at police.
Says an unjust law is no law at all.
Historic St. John's Church set under fire.
God.
Is this a war going on here?
We're really talking about our future. What type of country do we want to be?
Hello, welcome to Holding the Line, America's Fight for Religious Freedom. When I first became aware of the attacks on religious freedom, I heard of a story of a valedictorian who defied his school and spoke about Jesus during his graduation. He kind of became a hero to me. I admired his courage and faith. I tracked him down, and it was a young man named Roy Costner, and I asked him for an interview. He agreed. And we visited him in his hometown of Liberty, South Carolina. Come to find out, the atheist groups were on the prowl before he gave his graduation speech.
Liberty is a very small town in the upstate of South Carolina. It has a total of residents around 2,000 to 3,000 people, so not that many people there at all. And it's very rural, low socioeconomic households, and we have a strong faith, I would say, as a community as a whole. Believe it or not, there are close to 15 churches in a small town of Liberty alone. Come to find out, the Freedom from Religion Foundation during this time had sent a letter of intent to our school board. And they're out of Wisconsin. They've been doing this across the entire southern states. What they were doing is they were trying to create fear so that school boards who didn't have the funds, these small rural area school boards, wouldn't go up and actually fight the battle in court. It is very strange that they were placing these restrictions upon us, especially from the school board level. This community is very faith-driven. In fact, whenever the Freedom from Religion Foundation had originally sent their letter of intent to the school board and the school board was trying to figure out what to do, the entire community came together. Keep in mind, I told you it was a small town of close to 2,000 to 3,000. There was over 1,000 people at least at the school district's headquarters. All different types of churches, youth groups, chaplains, all coming together and circle the building in prayer. And to voice their concerns, saying, you know, these are our beliefs. Why is it you won't allow the community's voice to be heard? And the school board, still against the community's wishes, decided to remove all elements of the Bible, all allusions to God, completely from the school, including prayer before football games, before school board meetings, many other areas. Well, I didn't know that would affect me later on. This was in the fall, prior to graduation that next spring. And after they had removed all elements of prayer from football games, from prior to school board meetings, everything like that, after that happened, I ended up being bumped to valedictorian. We were brought into the office, and me and the salutatorian were sat down, and I was thinking, okay, well, maybe I've got salutatorian. I don't know what's going to happen. And our principal, Miss Gwynn, looked at us and she said, you know, Roy, you're going to be our valedictorian. And I want you to speak about the past. And RJ, you're going to be the salutatorian. I want you to speak about the future. And from there, we were challenged with creating a speech. And I went back and I started drafting a speech. And the whole time I was like, how can I talk about my past and show gratitude for it if I can't include God? And so I knew at that moment that I should include him, thank him for where I've gotten to. It's from him that even allowed me to get to where I am. And so I submitted the speech. It contained the Lord's Prayer. And when I submitted it to the administration, I was told that the speech had to have the element of prayer completely removed because the school board had decided that no prayer could be in any form of speech or anything given from the school's perspective or from the school itself. And I was like, okay, I'll go back and remove it. And so I removed it, submitted it again. This time they finally let it go through, but it didn't have what I felt was necessary. And then it came to be a challenge, personal conviction, because I had to really search my heart to know that, am I doing this out of anger, out of spite for some reason, or is this actually a true conviction of God's wanting me to share thanks for what he's gotten me? And so I did a lot of praying about it. In fact, my dad, I was cutting the grass, and he comes up to me, he said, Roy B., he said, so what are you going to do? And he said, and I was like, I don't know. He's like, well, just do whatever you feel is right in your heart.
This is a tough situation for an 18-year-old. Imagine yourself as a senior in high school, and not only do you have all that peer pressure, but now you have the threat of legal litigation if you mention God in your valedictorian speech. Roy knew what he needed to do, and what he chose to do sent shockwaves through the world.
And the day of graduation finally came around. At graduation, I was super nervous. I realized that I was going to do an additional speech. I had hidden it in my sleeve. And as we got to Little John Coliseum, which is at Clemson, I got into the tunnel to go out into the arena to be seated, and my heart was just racing, you know. And I walked out. Everything started. The ceremony started. I got to stage, and little did I know that the speech that I had submitted would be bound into a book on stage. I thought it was just going to be freely laying there. This isn't going to be a big deal. I'll just switch it out, you know, nothing big. And when I saw it bound on stage, I knew that what I was going to have to do. And I read the speech, and I said, you know, I think that most of you understand. Or first, I thanked all the people who were there, the school board, and all the administrative staff. And after I thanked the administrative staff, I said that I think there must be a mistake, because somehow this speech got approved. And I ripped it out of the book and I ripped it into pieces. And I said as a part of the speech, I said, I think that most of you understand when I say, "Our Father who art in heaven." And I proceeded to do the Lord's Prayer.
And I think most of you will understand when I say, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done." As we forgive those who trespass against us, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
It was such a surreal moment. There was applause during a prayer, first of all. And it was so loud, I couldn't even hear myself speaking anymore. Normally you can hear yourself when you're talking. And I looked up, and I was sitting there shaking. I look up, and I noticed that not only I was saying it, but the entire senior class was saying it along with me. And it brought tears to my eyes. I couldn't believe that this was happening. I mean, I kind of could, kind of couldn't. It was just such a surreal moment, but I really felt the presence of God. I felt a peace. Yes, I was nervous going into it, but when I got up on stage and started to give that prayer, it was almost like a moment of calm had come upon me, a moment of grace. And it was a really eye-opening experience. And from there, I thought it was all said and done.
Roy's action went viral.
A high school valedictorian uses his commencement address to send his school an epic message. The teen winds up tearing up his pre-approved speech and then reciting the Lord's Prayer instead.
Did you tell them at the time you were going to mention God, or even that you were thinking about it?
Something about it resonated throughout America. This was back when even CNN covered religious freedom news. Roy took all that attention in stride.
Little did I know that this speech had gone viral and that people were watching it all across the country, all across the state. I received a phone call from Fox Carolina out of the upstate, and they asked if they could do a Skype interview with me. I was like, okay, sure, you know, I'll be happy to do that. And one thing led to another. Fox Carolina to his radio with 89.3, and eventually we received a phone call from Fox and Friends out of New York City, and they asked if I could be on a part of their show. And I flew up the Thursday after graduation, and I was back by that next Friday. And during that 24 hours, we were on a host of different shows, from Sean Hannity to Pierce Morgan to Megyn Kelly and Fox and Friends. So it was a very eye-opening experience, very quick, but what really impacted me was the fact that I was able to see God use something I felt a conviction about it, but I felt as though it was insignificant compared to how great His glory is and how much He can do. But He was able to take that one small moment and was able to impact people across this country.
Now, Who initiated this complaint? Usually there's always this nameless, faceless, concerned parent or concerned citizen who tips off the Freedom from Religion Foundation and is sparking a response from them. What happened in this case?
Come to find out, the Freedom from Religion Foundation has been doing this across the southern states. They've been sending letters of intent, these boilerplate documents, to all these different school districts, hoping that they would back down because they don't have the funds to back up a lawsuit. This is exactly what happened in Pickens County. There was no one who complained within the school district of Pickens County. All the complaints came externally and mainly from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. In Pickens County, we've always been told as long as prayer or different types of allusions to God are student initiated, there's no problem at all. Yet when I tried to initiate a prayer during my valedictorian speech, it seemed to be a huge problem.
So atheist groups shout, any expression of faith must be student initiated. No adult can influence, coax, or guide the process of religious expression. Well, that's exactly what happened here. It was all Roy's idea, a student. But it became a huge problem. Here's what happened after Roy made that speech.
What was so strange to me is I was going through the line and shaking hands of all the different administrative staff, and several of the school board members were pulling me in, saying, thank you for what you did. And I was like, oh, this is strange. The exact people who are the ones who enforce these rules are now telling me thank you for what I did. And it made me aware that they were doing it out of fear. They had backed down out of fear. And after the ceremony had concluded, I went out and several of the students were like, thank you for what you did. That's awesome. And several of the parents were the same way. What was the thing that sticks out most in my mind was the principal who came up to me afterwards. And she said, thank you so much for standing by your faith. And she said, I hope others will follow in your footsteps. She said, I can't do anything about it. I can't tell them to, but hopefully they'll do the same. After my story went viral, I was receiving responses from across the country and, believe it or not, across the world. People out of Brazil, it was in the headlines in Brazil, as well as in, I want to say like Thailand or one of the Asian countries. And it was a wide range of different types of responses, from thank you for what you did, that's awesome, you've inspired me to do the same, to how dare you inflict a prayer on this captive audience who had no other choice but to listen to you pray. And I thought there would be more negative than there was, but believe it or not, there was a lot of positive. And it was really uplifting to me to see that, this nation might have a chance to turn around. Immediately after it happened, I got contacted by the Liberty Institute, and I'm very thankful for them to reach out to me. They said that they would stand by me if the Freedom from Religion Foundation was to come and attack me, or the school board was trying to remove my diploma. They would be able to stand by me and offer me guidance and support through that time. Luckily, I did not need the Liberty Institute.
Roy's boldness in that moment was contagious. People were ready to stand up and express their faith, no matter the cost.
After I gave my speech, the school board kind of changed their tone on the whole element of whether or not a student could give a prayer, especially at a graduation ceremony. And they received a lot of backlash from people across this nation saying, why is it that you're trying to restrict this young man's freedom of speech? He has a God-given right to be able to speak freely, yet you're trying to take that away from him. And luckily there was other students who came up after me who kind of followed in my footsteps, giving a prayer as well. One of the things I think that was most interesting to me was the same year as my graduation, there was a gentleman by the name of Marion Lawson. He is a principal at Pickens High School, and what he did I thought was almost more courageous than what I did. A lot of people don't know about him. He got up on stage after he'd been told by his higher ups, hey, you can't pray, you can't have any allusions to God. He got up there and started his ceremony for Pickens High School in prayer and ended it in prayer. And to me, that is humbling to see a man of such faith and such a high level of authority willing to stand by what he believes in. Right now, I think our nation is headed down a dark path. We seem to be turning a blind eye to God and denying miracles even before our eyes. It brings a lot to mind, and it's giving me goosebumps now thinking about it. It brings a lot to mind of Revelation and what it says is to come before the end times. And it's going to take individuals on a personal level creating relationships through discipleship in order to really rejuvenate this entire nation and to create a huge revival of sorts. I don't know why God chose me. You know, I'm a student in high school. I felt is very insignificant in the scheme of things in this whole world. But God chose to use this one moment, someone who's willing to stand by his belief and take a leap of faith for him, to transform our country in a way. He was able to witness to people that may not have ever heard anything about him. You know, he uses ordinary people like each of us. He's able to use tasks that seem so insignificant, stuff that doesn't seem to really matter, but it matters in the scheme of things. In God's plan, everything has a purpose. I was born premature, over a month premature, and the doctors didn't expect me nor my mother to make it. What was so unique is a prayer chain was created across the southern states, all the way up into Kentucky, that started in Liberty, South Carolina. This is before the age of internet and before the age of technology. People were praying for me and my mom all across this country in a way. And I feel like God's always preparing us for something. It's not a coincidence. There are certain moments in our lives, whether we realize it or not, that God is preparing us for what lies ahead.
Well said, Roy, and thank you for that spiritual insight. God can use ordinary believers to do extraordinary things. It's not just something we see in our lives, we see it clearly in the Bible. We're only going to make a difference when we take a stand and show the world who we love. The fight continues, and you need to be informed. So follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like this video. See more content coming your way. You can also read my book, Holding the Line, America's Fight for Religious Freedom. It's available on Amazon. Thanks for joining me, and keep holding the line.